I too was a little like Lloyd. Vogel was a little skeptical about could this man be as good as he appears, and he proved to be pretty remarkable. The character of Youree that I play was going to be a really fun challenge to get up on my feet and play this character who's, to me, pretty multi-dimensional, pretty off-putting, pretty rude character, pretty insensitive, and sometimes those are a lot of fun to play. Matthew's quite a cut-up, you know. He's a good, sweet man, and I had certainly followed him on The Americans, so I was looking forward to, working with him. And I think we just worked really well together, and worked well with the ensemble of actors. The atmosphere at work was just thoroughly positive and an enjoyment. This is a movie about putting your concentration on the other person, selflessness, empathy, inclusion, understanding, kindness, gentleness. Desperately need it now.
I was taken back to old times, and that that can be a little emotional, but for me, almost always it's happy. So let's say I was happy. He's just so unique. And Fred was unique, and he seems to just disappear into that, It's amazing. I'm amazed with his gift, his talent. He was a huge Tom Hanks fan. He must have seen Forrest Gump 40 times and just loved it. He said he saw something different each time. And he thought Tom was just the best. That was another time that I felt, oh my goodness, it's magic, It just seemed unbelievable that they could have done that. They worked hard on it, and they were proud of it, and I don't blame them. Tom, I got to know him. We went out not to a Chinese restaurant, but it was an Indian restaurant, and I remember that very well. And I was impressed with him. I thought he was a lovely person. Our producer, Peter Saraf, said, "Would you like to sneak into Tom's movie?" And I said, "Sure, that would be wonderful." So I really enjoyed it. And we had the whole gang there from the neighborhood. I hope that this is something that can bring people maybe together a little bit. Fred was, the most important thing to him was reconciliation. one of the most important things. The program was his ministry.
I grew up watching The Neighborhood, just like all good kids of the 70s and 80s, I think. But the truth is, those memories are so deep. Like, I was so young when I watched The Neighborhood, it's almost more in my DNA. It's like I can't consciously remember watching The Neighborhood, but when I stepped back and we created this set and I walked onto the set, it's like my heart leaped into my throat. I could just remember the stoplight and the fish tank and the couch and the closet, you know, but it's the interesting thing about, for a lot of us who did grow up with Fred, it's almost not conscious memory. It's deeper than that. It's further back. I think that's why it's so emotional. You know, I think that's why when the movie opens with the little miniature scene and you can hear the audience gasp, and it's gasping from a place of recognition, and it's just deep, deep, deep memory. It was a lot of pressure. We wanted to make sure that we did right by Fred and by all of their hard work. You know, they had created this show for so many years and worked so tirelessly to keep it up, and we wanted to do right by them. And the best compliment we got when they would walk in is they would say, "Oh, I feel like I just walked back in time. It even smells right." It was great. I mean, we meticulously recreated the puppets, and so many of them would ask us, "Oh, are you using our puppets?" And we'd say, no. But that's a great compliment. I can't overstate how much love and attention went into the details of this movie. He's incredible. The thing, you know, a few people have said to me, like, "Oh, it must have been easy for him. He's just such a nice guy. He put on the sweater," and it couldn't be further from the truth. Something so effortless takes a lot of effort. He truly had to go to a very transformative place energetically. He and I were very clear from the beginning. I said, "I don't want prosthetics. I don't want you to be doing an imitation of Fred. I'm not interested in that. It has to feel close to the audience. We have to feel like we are getting a very intimate portrait. It's all about what happens behind the eyes and what's happening in the silences." And so we really decided early on, like, it's just these eyebrows, a little wig, and the rest is about getting the essence right, getting the emotion right. That's my favorite part of being a director, is working with actors. I like getting in the dirt with them and figuring out the rhythms of a scene and how to access something, and I'm hands-on. It's hard to know why a cultural moment is happening, but I can feel it happening. I can feel just the people in my life who've said to me, "Oh, I'm so glad you made this movie. Thank you for making this movie for us." It's, I guess, the same reason I wanted to make the movie. I wanted a movie like this. So we're all tapped in to something collectively, some collective consciousness that's happening where we're wanting to hear Fred's message, but hard to know why, I guess. I think this movie was meant to come out now. For whatever that's worth, it's been around for a long time. The movie could have happened many times. It didn't, and it feels like it's happening at the right time. I hope it's a time and place to reflect on themselves. You know, this is really a movie about, it's not just about feeling good. It's also about doing the deeper work of choosing kindness and choosing how to address your own childhood pain and to be really present with yourself, which is not easy.
I had one kind of solid day where he was around and I kind of peppered and plagued him with questions. And then he was around a lot. He kind of dipped in and out. I think he was as genuinely intrigued as to how this instrumental moment in his life was going to play out. And hopefully we did right by him. There was a relief that it wasn't specifically him. The character wasn't Tom Junod. So there's a great amount of pressure that's relieved. But getting to know him and respecting him and loving him, I wanted to do right by him. I wanted to make sure that I hoped that he would go, "You got it right." I truly don't think there's anyone else who could have played Fred Rogers, in that, I know I've said this before, Fred Rogers and Tom Hanks elicit the same noise. When you say, "Oh, Fred Rogers," people go, "Oh," and then you go, "It's played by Tom Hanks," they go, "Oh." So there couldn't have been a better casting. And not to do him a disservice, what he does in this film is something of alchemy. I don't know how he does it. It's not impersonation. And of course, we always go for, the essence or embodiment of something. But I was staggered by what he did. I still don't quite understand how he did it. Everything Fred stood for was not necessarily, all peace and love, because he dealt with very difficult issues and themes. I think his greatest message was that to listen to the other person. As a result of that, other things can unfold. If you listen properly, then empathy could follow. And I think, and I include myself in this, that our ability to listen has veered from the path. That was an incredible moment to see their reaction. As we were in WQED studios, and they'd recreated the actual studio to the nth degree. To watch all those who'd worked, Marty and Bill Eisler, and especially Joanne Rogers, to walk in and see the set again, it was an incredible moment to be witness to. God bless Tom Hanks for, he was playing Fred Rogers in front of Fred's wife and all his greatest friends. But, if anyone's gonna step into those Titanic canvas shoes, it would be Hanks. It is a gentle reminder just to say, we should, if you can, try and listen. And if you listen, then as a result of that, other things, empathy, kindness, will follow. So, I hope that whatever people take away from this movie, if you take a moment, that's the first step. And usually from that, the listening will come a little easier.
I grew up watching Mr. Rogers in the mornings. I think at the time, funnily enough, I don't think we realized that they were repeats. We just thought it was a show that was coming on. But these were all, I realized, repeats from the 60s, 70s, whenever he was creating the show. And, and I remember there were moments where there were all these, to be continued. And then me and my brother would come back the next day and it was a totally different episode. We were like, why? Why? We needed to see what happened. But I didn't realize till later it was sort of, in syndication and stuff like that. And there was a point where he came back with, more content, newer content. But he was a mainstay in our house in the morning. I felt confident in the hands that it was in, and I felt like this is something that I didn't even know I was preparing for. You know what I mean? But you never know, all the things that you're going to use in life, that you're going to use in your adulthood and in your present. And who knew? Watching all that TV. They say TV bad for kids. No, it's not. No, it's not. I was watching Mr. Rogers doing my research. So I feel pretty pretty good that I got to be a part of it. I think he's more timeless than we knew, you know, and I think he's more necessary than we knew. And I think whenever there's somebody who brings that level of like compassion, kindness, truth, understanding, you know, people will find a way to sort of gravitate back to it. And, you know, with everything going on in the world right now, it just feels like, you know, we're still human. We all still need those things. And he is like the perfect place to find that. And in an era where a lot of us feel like there's all these fallen heroes, people we looked up to, and then, you know, you find out all this background, and then you're like, oh no, you know, it's like we have Mr. Rogers still, and there's no, oh no, you know what I mean? There's no, oh gosh, cringe, you know, it's like, oh no, he's the man that he said he was, and that's an amazing thing. I just think it's amazing. You know, I saw it and I was like, wow, it's just so nuanced and so special without trying to imitate anything. You know, it's really it's a breathing, living thing on its own, and yet he really embodies Mr. Rogers. Matthew is just wonderful. I feel like everything that he brought, you know, to Lloyd, and what, you know, without trying to be Tom Junod, you know, it's sort of, you know, taking all of the elements of what Tom's story is and just creating his own Lloyd was really amazing. And we got along together so well. And I feel like really created a special relationship together. She had a very strong vision for the film and was very true to the vision. I think kept, you know, sailed the ship straight, you know what I mean? While still being very respectful of what we wanted to bring to the performances, and just, you know, just a really wonderful energy on the set to, you know, create with. It's because we can all use a little kindness, you know what I mean? It is just that. I think even people who normally would think this is not my type of film, at this point in the world, they're longing to see it, because we just want a space where we can all come together in agreement and say that we don't have to be as cynical, and that compassion is still a really strong force, and we can all use it more.
He did have I think, a self-imposed spiritual mandate to engender understanding and kindness in a world and in a medium, television, in which it the medium had put very little import on kindness and understanding. And the world itself seems to be a place where you can only, when you find that, it's precious and it's few and far between. When he got this assignment, as I understand it, it was like, we're gonna write about heroes, and you are going to write about Fred Rogers. And I thought I was going to write about heroes, you know. Can I write about Gorbachev or, you know, Nancy Reagan or something like? No, you're going to get Mr. Rogers. And what I did not realize. And he did it, and it ended up changing his life because he met this guy who asked as many questions about Tom as Tom asked about Fred, and was really, you know, interested. Is that Fred had read the articles, and he said, no, maybe he shouldn't do you. He said, no, I think it would be good if he wrote it. There's a lead bird in the flock, and it was not nature, and it was not any act. It was really Mari, It was Maury laying down what the philosophy of the movie was going to be. He gave everybody a fair shake. You know, anybody who visited his neighborhood came in with absolutely no preconceived notions of what they wanted or what their motivations were. It was just like, oh, how nice to see you. And I mean, you can make so much about there being a black policeman who comes by Mr. Rogers' neighborhood. And what is he doing? Is he looking for a stolen bicycle? Is he telling Mr. Rogers that he's got to move his car? Is he asking questions about a mysterious neighbor who, was seen, not to? No, he's coming by because it's a hot day, and he'd really like to take off his shoes and cool his feet in a wading pool. That's a fair shake, and that has absolutely no assumptions about anybody, everybody who came by. I think he's one of those people that, for Fred, actually turned into a broader human experience. And I've seen the letters that they wrote back and forth to each other long after that. I saw a lot of correspondence that he would keep up. And he and Tom Junod, they kept in touch about everything that was possibly, under the sun, which is, again, Lloyd, in our movie, expanded Fred's world, and he was grateful for just how special a gift that is.
I hate to use the word miraculous because it's so loaded. But it seems like a small miracle that a story that is 21 years old becomes a movie whose message seems essential today. How that came to be, I don't know. But the fact that I'm part of it is a great gift to me. I sought him out in 1998 for an article. Our friendship, continued until he died, which was about a 4-year friendship. I definitely spent enough time with him for Matthew to play me in the movie, which was another shock, by the way. So because I saw the movie, at a screening room by myself in the summer. And, I didn't know what to expect, even though I had been on the set and even though I had talked to Matthew. But, you go to the theater and lights come up and lights go down and the movie comes up and, there's a person on the screen sort of playing you. And it's an education, and it's a gratifying experience, kind of a humbling experience at the same time. It's super emotional, really emotional, because it makes you think about that time. It makes you, go back to who you were and who you might have been, and how Fred came along and sort of, changed a few things. And you ask yourself, how did this happen? Why did this happen? My reaction was that I bought in, because I think that the greatest thing about the movie is that Fred is telling the story. He is talking to you the way he talked to his audience at the neighborhood. He is talking to you the way he talked to me in person. He is talking to you the way he talked to children that he met on the street. He had that incredible gift of making everything one-on-one. And that movie is that, he is talking to the audience one-on-one. So the minute that started, I was in. I didn't even really think about is Tom getting this inflection right? It just never was an issue, because Tom was doing the most important thing, which was talking to me. the restaurant scene, from beginning to end was just a crusher for me, because when Matthew asked him, basically, you like people like me, and Fred asked, what kind of person is that, and he says broken people. Well, that hits hard, and what happens next, and I don't want to be a spoiler here, because I think that what happens next is one of the most moving things that I've seen in a motion picture in a really long time, because it's very Fred-like in that it asks something of Matthew, but it also asks something of the audience that's participating and watching it. We have decided to move, forward, without a lot of the qualities that Fred embodied, without kindness, without mercy, without thinking about things. Everything's so fast, and everything is a distraction, and and everything is like a mean distraction, and I think that what I hope of this movie is that it's gonna, it just asks us to put on the brakes. Do we really want to be looking at Fred Rogers in the rearview mirror? Do we really want to leave this kind of example behind? Do we really kind of keep on moving forward the way we're going? Because it's unsustainable ultimately. And I think that the fact that this movie not just shows Fred's message, but shows how that Fred arrived at that message, that he worked hard at that message, that we can all work, harder at this gift of kindness. I think it just seems like necessary right now.